alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to Soul Sisters on Oman FM. This is Maya Al Saeed, and with me in the studio is my lovely co-host,
Vanessa Mehri.
Today we'll be talking about beauty, aren't we, Vanessa?
Mm-hmm. And the big question is to age or not to age gracefully?
That is indeed the question.
Perfect. Now, the beauty standards are societal norms, okay? Expectations, if you will, about what is and what is not considered beautiful, or as the younglings say, aesthetically pleasing. Okay?
Yeah.
These standards have a significant impact on how people view themselves, all right? And can lead to feelings of inadequacy or low self-esteem if individuals feel they don't meet these often unattainable beauty standards. Now, we've got some interesting guests in studio, don't we?
We do. We have three guests with three different views on this topic. Our first guest is Charlie Christmas, who, in her words, chooses not to age gracefully at all. Our second guest is Tara Al-Ismaili, due to a football injury, chooses whether to opt for plastic surgery or not. And finally, we have Bernadette Millard, who chooses to work with nature as opposed to against it. So how about we watch that first interview?
Yeah.
Let's do this.
Thank you so much for having me on the show.
So, yeah, Charlie, I'm just going to jump right into it.
Go for it.
Okay. Bodily and facial alterations.
Yes.
We all know how women take to the subject. They're quite iffy about it. Some women are okay with it. Some are very against it. And you, for one, have been very open about this on social media.
Yeah.
Maybe we can start with, when did you start? What did you start with?
Okay, so I have been sort of taking care of my skin my whole life. I knew right from my 20s that I was not one of the people that wanted to grow old gracefully. I do not want to do that. I want to grow old as disgracefully as I possibly can. So I actually started with a little bit of Botox in my early 30s. I think I was probably about 33. And that's a few years ago now. And, you know, I wasn't crazy with it, but I had a little bit in my forehead and just here around my eyes, you know, because
The wrinkles.
You know, the wrinkles.
The crow's, is it crow's feet?
I laugh a lot, so I'm obviously going to get wrinkles in this area. And I used to have Botox once or twice a year. Botox in those days lasted 4 to 5 months. This is back in the UK. And then I moved to Oman, and that was nearly 12 years ago now. And so I was looking for places or someone who could continue that routine for me. So I actually found someone who was in Dubai. We used to go backwards and forwards from Dubai. She was a cosmetic nurse, and she was a friend of mine, and she said, sure, I'll help you out. So twice a year, she would come over and see her family anyway. You know, she'd bring a little bit of Botox with her, and we'd just keep it going. And so I have actually been doing Botox just a bit. I still only do it twice a year or once a year, depending on how it lasts. Botox, not all Botox is equal. You have to do your research if you do Botox. Some are better than others. But mine, I have Botox now,
But you can move your face.
Yeah, this is 8 months old.
To me, Botox, from what I've gathered, what I knew Botox to be is you couldn't even frown.
Yeah, well,
I think it depends how you would know better, but it depends who gives it to you, because it's the pressure point. So I don't know what they call them.
Yeah, exactly. So you've got the 11s here. A lot of people have like quite deep expression lines here. Some people love those. I love actually seeing them on other people. I don't know how I would look with them because I don't have them. Because I've used Botox as a prevention rather than a cure, I don't have those lines. Even when it wears off, I don't have wrinkles on my forehead, even when the Botox wears off.
So you said at the beginning that I don't want to age gracefully. Now, I just want to understand what provoked that thought process.
Social media,
interesting.
advertising, just, I would say possibly that my thought process is much better now, but certainly in my early 30s and even younger, teenage, we had Cindy Crawford, and her famous saying, Cindy Crawford said, "What I wouldn't give to look like Cindy Crawford," meaning all of her photos are digitally altered and enhanced when they go to the media. So I had a very skewed opinion on beauty and beauty standards right from a teenager, and so many people, and that's back in the 80s. So many of us, I feel, are in the same position, and we've taken that even a step further now with social medias. I go on Instagram and do my little reviews and everything else, pop a filter on it.
Yeah.
You almost never see me unless I'm doing TV or something like this today. You won't see me without a gentle filter.
And it does. I've used filters sometimes.
Yeah.
Especially when I just don't feel like putting foundation.
Yeah.
My foundation skills will never, ever get to the filter level.
No, I totally agree.
But sometimes it's easy as a woman, because then you're putting, social media is such that you always put your best foot forward, isn't it? I mean, even in the 70s when people took pictures, nobody's going to get out of bed in their pajamas and go, hey.
And if you think about the 70s when we were taking pictures, I looked quite good in the early 80s. And my skin looked fresh, and I had crazy hair, but, my skin looked good. But since then, the technology of how we take photos and the pixels are so much more now, and everything is HD.
It's very unforgiving.
Totally unforgiving. And that's where filters have come in, because we all want to aspire to be the best we can be. And as you say, if you don't feel like putting foundation on, or, a bit of eyeshadow or a bit of lipstick, whack a filter on it. It's so easy.
I, again, just like many of us, have used filters, but now I'm starting really to push myself out of my comfort zone and just press the record button, no filters.
Yeah, good for you.
So, I understand where you're coming from, but for me, I'm trying to move myself out of feeling this way, just because this makes me feel good, and I know that I want to be as natural. So a bit of your opposite. I respect your views and the way you want to lead your life, but I feel that I want to go
the other way.
I want to be the Sophia Loren.
Yes.
I want to age gracefully, take care of my body the natural way, work out, eat healthy, and all of that.
And I mean, you're absolutely beautiful.
Thank you.
Untouched face, wonderful. I'd like to say I'm not jealous, but I am. But I respect that so much. And I would like to point out that we have a lot more access to information on how to take care of our skin now than we have ever done, on what to put in our bodies, what to eat, what supplements to take. So we can take better care of ourselves without having to do the Botox and the fillers and, the laser for the skin, and which I've also done, by the way. Yeah. But they have things now, even since 2 years ago, they have things now which is a lot less painful, a lot less discomfort. So perhaps at the end of the year, I'll go and try that. But I'm always going to be striving for what I feel is perfect for me. Might not be perfect for you you, but yeah.
So basically there isn't, for you at least, you don't really see an end in sight when it comes to getting this stuff done.
No.
Do you worry about the effects it has on your body internally? Do you...
Well, Botox actually moves out of your system quite quickly. So Botox is injected into, as you say, points in your face to paralyze the muscle, but it's not something that stays in your body. It relaxes the muscles, but it moves out of your body. Fillers are not like that. They stay because they're pushing the skin
Is it a gel?
out. Yeah, it's a liquid.
Okay.
But they work in completely different ways. And that's why some of your face, if you're using fillers in your face, you can put in certain places to change the aesthetic, to maybe change your jawline, or fill in these areas here. You wouldn't use Botox in these areas because it wouldn't really do anything. Botox is used to paralyze muscles. So we're talking muscles here, muscles here, muscles here. You can put Botox here to flip your lips slightly.
Oh.
There's all sorts of little things that you can use Botox in your neck to relax these muscles.
I've heard you can do it if you have hyperhidrosis.
Yes. Yes. Armpits, to stop sweating. So Botox has many uses, but it's more of a paralyzing liquid, whereas fillers, you're actually putting something in which is semi-permanent. It will dissolve after a certain time. Could be a year, 2 years, depending on what you use.
All right. How would you handle it if, because you have a daughter,
yes.
Beautiful little girl.
Yes.
When she gets to the tender age of around 15, 16 and starts, even 13, because I have a 13-year-old, it starts very early these days, and they become more self-aware, and they start not necessarily liking what they see in the mirror, which is sometimes crazy. Mm-hmm. If she's approaching you and tells you, I want to get this done, how are you going to feel about that? How are you going to approach that subject?
As far as actual treatments like this, I would explain to her what they are, but I'd also explain to her that at 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, it's not going to benefit her in any way because she's too young. Her skin, you have to be at a certain level for it to make a difference.
True.
Botox less so, because Botox is a preventative measure. So if she comes to me when she's 25 and says, Mama, I would actually like to start Botox now, I'd say, yeah, of course, and I'd support that. But at 15, all the fat pads in the face, everything is where it should be. So
everyone now at this age, we all want to go back to being 15. There's a 15-year-old saying we want to start.
15-year-olds, that's the problem. There's so much noise around them now. There's so many adverts telling you how they're going to help you get, perfect porcelain skin and help you get shiny hair, and there's too many to mention. And these poor little girls have not only that constantly showing on their, when they watch YouTube, it shows up as an advert, but it's always, the noise is all around them. And they might not be on social media yet because, some of our girls are still too young for it. But then they have access to Pinterest, they have access to Google. And even in school,
absolutely.
In school they'll have their friends who, some of the girls on TikTok are very young, and they have public accounts, and I worry about the mental health of our girls.
Me
as
too.
we go forward with this.
I think the way I think is if we had more people like Charlie, who I love the fact, Charlie, that first of all you agreed to do this interview with us and to be so authentic. Yes, I've had this done here, whatever. I have a problem with a woman who does it and then says she hasn't done anything.
But you get that all the time.
Yeah, but then see, here's the problem. Then when a little girl looks at this woman and she goes, oh, she looks so pretty, and she says she hasn't done anything, and this woman has had so many things done to look the way she has.
Like Kylie Jenner with her lips. I believe those are big...
and do you remember what the knock-on effect? Do you remember that the girls were doing that
lip
thing where they sucked their lip, and then some of them were reacting really badly, and they had these huge lips. Why would anyone think that that's a good idea? And who cares if you've
had something?
Look, as far as I'm concerned, it's each to their own. I respect you, and I love the fact that you want to do your thing naturally as you can. I love that.
Thank you.
I'm the opposite. Doesn't mean that we're not good people in our own right. Yes. It's just my vision of my future is different to your vision of your future.
And then what you do is you're doing it to your body. You're not coming and doing it to my
Exactly.
body. So I respect the way you, as I said in the beginning, the way you lead your life, and you respect mine. And this is, I think, how everyone should be. I'm not going to judge Charlie for being who she is. She's fantastic. She feels good in herself. She loves herself. But also, there's the other side that I want girls to know, that you have this route and you also have this route. We don't always have to go down that path. So this is what I am trying to
I certainly think that had I had all of the information when I was in my teens and 20s that I have now, I probably, well, I won't say probably, but I possibly wouldn't have gone this route, because I would have treated my body better.
Do you see yourself taking more invasive routes in the future?
Yeah, I would happily, in the next 8 to 10 years, have that. I know that I'm going to do something.
If you need it.
I'm going to need it. Unless they're
looking at you, you're a stunning woman.
Oh,
mashallah. You're a stunning woman. So, I don't know.
But, it takes work. You know, and it takes Botox, and it takes filler, and I probably do things that I don't really need to do, but that's because I don't want to have the wrinkles in my forehead. So I prevent that from happening, and I guess I will continue to. My forehead when I'm 90 is still going to look like it's 20, and the rest of me is going to be dragging on the floor. But
this is a question, because every procedure you've done so far is on your face. I'm wondering, have you had anything done on the other parts of your body?
I would love to at some point have a breast enlargement. I fed my daughter for nearly 2 years, and they're great, fine. I'm happy, but I could be happier.
Okay.
So that's one thing that I have looked into, and I would happily do that with the right surgeon. And I can't stress enough, and this is something that I really want to say in this interview, you have to do your research. It's so important. You have to go on recommendations. You have to see reviews. You have to talk to people, because you don't want to be one of those people that has a bad experience. And, I can't stress how important that is. You guys know, I thoroughly research every person that I go and see, and I've always done that. And I've never, touch wood, had a horrible experience.
Clearly you've been fine, yeah. But I feel people need to stop being toxic as well towards other women. I can't count how many times you'll compliment a woman and you'll say, oh, she's so pretty. And first thing will be either she's had work done, or, oh, she used to be pretty 10 years ago now.
You should have seen her 10 years ago.
You should have seen her 10 years ago. She was stunning. And you're like, oh, she
can't even enjoy the moment. Like, she's 40 or 50, someone's
already tearing her down. I think women need to, and it's usually women who are insecure about themselves, isn't it?
And it's normally the most beautiful women that often do that to other beautiful women. I don't know why. It's just one of those things. Maybe because their perception of beauty is elevated, possibly, and so it distorts their own version of beauty. But I mean, this is such a cliche. You can have as much filler and as much Botox like me as you want. If you're not a nice person, it really doesn't make any difference. It's not going to help
pretty
you.
To look at and not pretty to hang around with, because you're pretty on the outside and ugly on the inside.
Sounds like an avocado.
Anyway, we loved having you, Charlie.
It's been my pleasure.
For being
Thank you
authentic.
so much for coming.
Thank you.
So we've just finished watching Charlie's interview. What are your thoughts, Vanessa, on that?
I feel like hearing somebody, seeing and hearing somebody talk about the choices they make and how it impacts them as individuals, it was insightful and definitely made me have more empathy towards, people who've had elective.
Yeah, I get the empathy part, and I also feel that, but I'm still stuck in my choices. I still think aging gracefully or naturally is the way for me, and I just wish more people would embrace that, I guess.
Well, you said it, your choices. So I think we just have to be kinder and not judge people for their own personal choice, because life is their own journey, and we should just accept whatever they've chosen to do on their own journey.
True, but I also think there's a right way and wrong way of doing things. But anyway, it's really a personal, view of how I see life. And I guess I just wish more people would do that. But I totally respect everyone's choices, our guests, and whoever chooses to live their life this way. Anyway, now let's move on to Thara Al-Ismaili, who's the one, if you remember, I said she had an injury due to football. And now it was, she was between should I opt for plastic surgery or not. So let's watch that one together.
Hello.
You have a story to share with us today that involves a facial feature of yours. Do you want to take it off?
One of the most important ones, the one right in my middle of my face.
Yeah, but to be fair, yours wasn't by choice.
No.
Whereas a lot of women go to have elective surgery, so they've chosen to have the surgery.
Yes.
So it's elective surgery. Yours came about due to an accident. So do you want to discuss that a bit? Tell us about it.
I mean, I don't really actually want to claim that it was not by choice. I mean, I can think of so many things that happen to people, and they need some major intervention surgery. Mine's really tiny thing, tiny little tweak. Because of an accident I had playing football. I went up to header the ball with another girl, and I got the ball and she got my face. At least I think I got the ball and she got my face, because there's no other explanation to it. Yeah.
And so this happened when you were young, or?
2010.
Okay.
So yeah, very young, since I'm getting old now.
Aren't we all?
Yeah, I'm aging gracefully, as you guys like to say.
You are, though. Certainly.
Anyways, she headed me in the face and fractured my nose. I got 4 stitches, and I couldn't do anything at the moment. The doctor couldn't straighten it for me while I was there in Abu Dhabi at the time. So I had to wait for the swelling to go down. And in order for them to straighten it after the 2 weeks, they said they would have to sort of re-break it.
Ooh.
And I didn't want them to re-break my nose, so I just never did anything about it. So I let it heal the way it was after it broke. But it bothered me for, ever since then it bothered me, because I know it's crooked. It's not noticeable, and if I mention it, people are like, I had no idea your nose was crooked. But I can see it, and once you see it, you can't go back. And it's not like a little scar that I can wear long sleeves if it's on my arm, or cover my knee if it's on my knee. You can't cover my face. I don't cover my face, so I see it all the time. Look into the mirror, it's crooked. It's not a big deal. I could have gone without doing anything about it. In fact, I was going to go on without doing anything about it. But I have a deviated septum. My right nostril has less airflow than the left one. And so I went to the doctor, and he told me there's a surgery for it. And then I asked him, like, hey, well, while you're tweaking my nose, you might as well fix the fact that it's crooked. He said, yeah, we can do that. So that's how I ended up getting a nose job. Is it a nose job? Can I say that?
It is.
I never thought I could say I got a nose job, but I find it really fun to say. Anyways, so I got my nose done.
So it's completely, so if it hadn't been for, the way you were born naturally was completely fine with you.
Yeah.
So it's just because of the accident, your nose got
I always loved my nose. My mom says it looks like a button, a cute button. So like that's how I grew up thinking of my nose. So I never had a problem with it. And I'd like to think that actually, I probably won't say this because it might insult whoever does do surgeries. But I'm very confident in myself. And I don't have anything that I would like to change. Alhamdulillah. But yeah, so
Okay.
I wouldn't have done anything.
Well, were you happy with how the surgery went? Tell us about like the after.
No, I mean, I had this impression that I was gonna come out looking like Kim Kardashian, like completely changed, seeing life, breathing in. Anyways, I had a cast. I don't know what it's called. This is that white thing that they place over your nose. So for the first 2 months, I didn't really know what it looked like. And also the doctor said that nose surgeries in general take 6 months for you to see how it's actually going to look like.
Oh, wow.
So after 6 months, I was supposed 2 months, I was supposed to go back to the doctor for him to check up on how the progress is. But I never went back. And here's why. My impression is that there's nothing he can do now. He's stitched me up. I've begun to heal. And if I didn't like how it turned out, he's going to have to do surgery again. And I didn't care for the surgery in the first place. So I wasn't going to go out of my way to get a second surgery if needed. I wasn't happy because my nose just felt really weird, and I thought I looked like Michael Jackson. And I feel sometimes in the right angle, in the right lighting, I'm like Michael Jackson. But yeah, so I never went back because it didn't bother me enough. I didn't really see any improvements. My nose is still crooked, a different way, but not straight. And I figured I was okay with it the first time around. I guess I'll be okay with it now.
That's very powerful. Just that last statement there. So that kind of goes into the realm of self-acceptance and self-love, which is what we usually preach about around here.
Definitely. And as you said, Tara, looking at you, because when I first met you, before we started recording,
straight for you. You see it, don't you? Now that I mentioned it.
No, now that you've mentioned it in the interview, but prior to that, when I first met you outside, before we started recording, I was like, what happened? Like, where is the, the
And now I'm announcing it to all of Oman's. All of Oman's gonna see it.
No, but
Just kidding.
The most important part you've said is you've healed, you've accepted, and you are the most important person. Whoever else, it really doesn't matter because it's not their face, it's not their nose, it's yours.
Yeah. And at least, thank goodness, it kind of still looks the same as it did before. If it didn't, I would have been really regretful. Like, I didn't want it in the first place, and now I just went and made it worse. In some ways, I feel it's a little bit worse because you know how you have the, what's it called? Cartilage in the front. And if you press your nose down, you can squish it down. But after the surgery, I don't feel like I have that capability anymore. Like it's really
like
stiff.
Okay.
And that was really annoying to get used to in the beginning, but
you're okay with it now.
I'm okay with it now. It's nothing major, and I can breathe from my nose. There are worse things that can happen. And yeah, it is what it is.
Now with Tara's interview, I love how she managed to come back strong from it. As despite her nose still not being the way she was hoping it would be, but she's just accepted. That's like self-love, and that's, I think, how there's a big lesson there on how we should really accept how we look.
There's a lesson because it also tells you that elective surgery doesn't always go the way we intend it to go. There are some risks involved with it.
Yeah.
And I think a good question to ask yourself is, am I okay if something goes wrong? Can I accept myself then? Or just don't do it and accept yourself from the start?
I think it's always about self-acceptance from the word go. Like you look at yourself every day in the mirror. How do How do you see yourself? Like, do you love yourself? You should. And it's the thoughts that come in the back of your mind that I think it's an inner battle more than it's a physical one, like to change. You have to change your thoughts. I don't know. That's just my 2 cents on it.
I agree. So who do we have next?
So the next guest that we're going to watch is Bernadette Millard, who I absolutely loved that interview in terms of how she really chooses to work with nature and embrace everything that comes with life, the journey, and not work against it. So let's see that one. What are your thoughts on aging gracefully? Are you with it or against it?
Aging is a fact of life,
yes.
And it's something that we have to get to grips with as we grow older. You actually start aging from the moment you're born.
It's very true.
And I think the way to think of it is, aging is a lot better than the alternative.
True, which is not to be living.
Not to be living, yeah. I actually am not a fan of the phrase aging gracefully.
Oh.
Because I think it's very much focused on women. You never hear, I don't think, of men being asked to age gracefully. It's as though we reach a certain point in our lives and we've got an expiry, and it's very much focused on level of attractiveness and beauty and the external physical. And it also implies like your options in life are narrowing.
Yeah, true.
Doors are closing. And I prefer to think of aging as life is a journey, and aging in terms of seasons. So in life, everything has its season.
So nice.
You have, typically we talk about birth, marriage, death. Obviously there's a lot in between that. But if you think of it in terms of spring, summer, autumn and winter, then it's an evolution. And you can transition through every season knowing that it's change, but it can be positive change because every new door that opens brings you an opportunity.
I love that. It's so wise.
That's so beautiful.
But the thing is, when we talk about aging gracefully, it does unfortunately imply that it's focused only on the beauty aspect, which is why many women are pressured, I guess, to always look a certain way because of that implication that if you do age, you shouldn't have wrinkles, or so they go through procedures to keep looking a certain way. And to some women, that is how they want to look. But to others, and I'm one of those, I'd rather just, as you say, let life take its course, and I just look after myself the best way I can. And this is one thing that I notice about you, that, mashallah, you've reached a certain age and you're just really looking after yourself. So if you can tell us a bit more about how you choose to look after yourself physically, mentally, emotionally.
Yeah, sure. Just to go to that point on looking a certain way, I think it's Mark Twain who said something about, wrinkles are the reminders of where the smiles and laughter were, which I think is, a lovely way to look at it. There's quite a lot in what you've just to unpack, I think. What I noticed is that at school, the girls who had the glowing complexions, who looked fit, who looked strong, who were healthy, but that was reflected in their physical appearance, were the ones who were most active. They were the hockey players, the netball players, etc. So I've always been, a firm believer in that it's not what you put on your body, it's what you put in it. And by that I don't mean fillers and silicone implants, but in terms of diet and exercise. Mostly what you notice about people when you first meet them is their skin, and the blood flow, increased blood flow and oxygenation of the blood, which comes from exercise, I think is something that can take you 80% if your focus is on looking good, 80% of where you want to be. And also I've always been quite a firm advocate of food as medicine, and not someone who has a lot of fried food or junk food or processed food. Only takeaways we have tend to be like, automatic with tabbouleh and hummus and grilled meats and whatever. Except when the kids were young, the weekly treat of McDonald's or pizza was there for them. So I have a lot of sympathy with women who would choose to, in a sense, go for a quick fix, have plastic surgery or lots of makeup. But at the end of the day, that's only going to take you maybe into your early 40s. If you're not taking care of the underlying health of your microbiome, of your, that's all linked to your mental health and your physical strength. In terms of you're losing muscle, so many % every year. And that increases obviously after menopause around, typically 45 to 55. It's like putting whitewash on a building, giving it a coat of paint, when in fact the superstructure is literally crumbling.
Yeah. Wow, it's that's quite powerful. I mean, women have so much pressure. I'm just like, the beauty standards, as you mentioned, are just almost unattainable today.
But then, is it the mindset that we have to, I don't know how to address this, and why do they feel they have to be stuck in a certain age and not want to age, as in get older, and embrace that part of your life? Because you can't really change much.
Because society wants to dictate what beauty norms is, what is and what is not.
What is society at the end of the day? Society is us.
Is us, you and me.
Very
and
true.
I think there's nothing new in this. If you look back in space and time around the world, women have always tried to achieve some standard of beauty, which is dictated by, their cultural norm. So you have, for 1,000 years in China, this binding of the feet, where the feet, from the age of a young age, the girl's feet are bent back, tied, bandages removed every day, the toes broken. So it looks like a lotus flower. And that was the sign of ultimate refinement. In Victorian England, people used to wear these boned corsets that they had to be engineered into every day. And that was a sign of high social standing, prestige, etc. Because the tiny waist was something that was very prized. And then you get the Japanese from 700s who used to paint their faces white. And that was the ultimate symbol of beauty in the Japanese culture until the early 1900s. So we're talking 100 years ago. And a lot of that was lead-based paint. Even in England, in the Elizabethan period, women used to paint their faces white. And all of these things are, number one, painful, but very temporary fixes, because they were all based on lead, which is a poisonous substance absorbed by the human body and could, in extreme cases, lead to death. But the early degeneration of the skin and other impacts on the body itself. So there's nothing new there. I don't know if you'd agree, though. All of those practices throughout history, and the African practice of extending the neck. And in Malaysia, they put huge weights in the ears and all sorts of things. They involve a lot of pain, and my feeling is that those serve the interests of men primarily. Those were driven by men, because all of those practices had some, erotic overtone, or kept the woman powerless. The woman with bound feet can't walk. The Victorian English lady was always fainting, conveniently often into the arms of a gentleman who would then carry her and put smelling salts and offer her his handkerchief, which was the calling card of the day. But I don't know if you'd agree that what we see today and this unattainable beauty standard, particularly in this part of the world, is more driven by women. And you have to ask yourself, for what purpose am I putting myself through surgeries or procedures, or just putting, a shed load of makeup on every day? For whom am I doing this?
For the instant gratification, as you said, that has long-term impact.
Yeah. Is it for myself? Is it for other women? Is it for people in the workplace? Is it for my husband? Is it to attract a husband? What is my purpose? And I think that there's been a shift, and what is driving it really is economics of the beauty business, being, I don't know how many $1 trillion. A lot of these ladies ultimately we're all consuming, and that's the idea, to get us on this, mouse wheel of constant consumption. But also a lot of them are selling the product.
Yeah.
Okay, wow.
That's where social media comes in, doesn't it? All the beauty bloggers that are constantly convincing you of the latest products you have to have. You don't have this, you're not okay. If your lashes are not touching your forehead, you're not fine. And if your upper lip doesn't touch your nose, you're not fine.
But even, those standards or those beauty trends, they keep on changing all the time.
They do.
So at one point, beauty was having big luscious lips.
Yes.
And then they were not. You had to have smaller lips. And then at one point, the eyebrows. So it's constantly changing. So are we not confident in ourselves enough that we have to constantly hop on the next beauty trend?
Well, as Bernadette beautifully mentioned, the beauty standards, they vary across different cultures. They change. For example, I believe it's China, where women are considered beautiful when they have smaller lips. So again, completely.
That's right. And in Chinese and Malaysian culture, I lived in Borneo sometime. To have a gap between your two front teeth was the ultimate sign of beauty.
So in Kenya, there's a Kenyan tribe that actually, they'll remove teeth. They'll remove the bottom tooth.
Yes.
To have that gap. It's only women, I believe, that are subjected again to this.
Because all men are beautiful.
Well, beauty.
Well, that brings me back to why do we do this? Yes, men don't feel the need to do that. Although I would say that men also these days, as part of the consumer drive,
I agree.
Especially in Oman and the Gulf, far more so than in the UK, are taking more care of themselves, which is a plus, but are also becoming, if you like, victims in a sense of, the right-angled cut, and
they're putting makeup now.
They're doing their eyebrows.
I was about to say they're filling in their eyebrows.
They're also having plastic surgery.
Yes. I mean, I understand. I think that for me, I
don't understand.
Look, I get it if somebody has something really physically wrong. For example, maybe their nose is completely bent, or I don't know, maybe they have a jaw issue.
Okay.
I get if it's something you look at them and you're like, okay, that's definitely, and they've struggled to get comfortable with that and confident. I understand to a limit. For me, I feel the line is drawn when you find women and men who look perfect. They have their natural beauty. I feel is like art. Art is subjective. Beauty is subjective. I find, for example, women who don't have perfect porcelain white, chiseled teeth, I find them attractive. I like when I see a tooth slightly off place when they smile. There's a beauty about that.
Beauty, and also beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
It is,
how we also are looking at that person.
But the problem is when everybody's rushing to a surgeon with this picture, I want this nose, I want this, and this. Everybody tends to start looking cookie cut. So now you're losing your uniqueness that God created you with. So
absolutely,
that's where I start having an issue with that. And more often than you'll find that they don't look better than when they started. You know, it's almost like once you start with the surgeries, you go down a rabbit hole and you keep going and going. And then, there's no return.
And then even those surgeries or procedures have to be renewed every, 6 months or so.
Yeah.
So it's a rabbit hole in terms of what you start looking at, I guess, but also in terms of maintenance. And you're devoting such an immense investment of time, energy. And to go back to one of your previous episodes on budgeting, can be considerable sums of money.
Yeah. So have you always been this way, or is there something that you had a bad experience with, then you decided I'm going to go all natural or take care of my body the way I do now?
I think I've always been this way. And I think this whole concept of beauty and the values that that are being spread by these concepts of beauty. I will just say that now there is a backlash in certain parts of the world towards natural and minimalist makeup. And it's very much focused on skincare. I came across a phrase recently, they're calling it skinimalism. So if you want a label, there's another one for you. But I remember when I was about 11 or 12, I read in one of those girls' annual books that rainwater was good for your skin. So when my parents, they would not have been sympathetic to me collecting rainwater, creeping out in the night or the evening to put a bucket in the garden to collect rainwater to wash my hair and my face. And then I collected rose petals to make rose water, which is not easily available in England. And my mother found those rotting things under my bed. Again, pretty much the same age. But the incident, which most members of my family remember, is when I was getting ready to go to a party, I'd read about putting beaten egg on your hair as like a conditioner. I hadn't read the small print, which is, don't wash it off with hot water. So on this very special night, I ended up with, a head full of omelette or scrambled egg. And you can't wash it out, I'll tell you. My mother and my sister and everybody had to just try and pick this out, and I had to start all over again. So I kind of evolved since then a little bit. But there was a moment when I was growing up in the 1970s, which I recognise is, good half a century away now, when the focus was not on beauty. Women had made all these strides in the 1960s, in the kind of previous generation. And in the 70s, I went to an all-girls school, and education was very much focused on building character, building values, getting an education, absolutely not going from school to marriage. And wearing a lot of makeup was very much frowned upon. It was considered, it was associated with having loose morals and trying to attract people for the wrong reasons and all of these things. So in a sense, that was the environment that I grew up in. And if you wore makeup, it was quite just subtle to enhance what you're born with, the gifts that you have, and everybody, as you said, Vanessa, just now, your uniqueness. It was very against being, having a very homogenous kind of plasticized Barbie type of appearance. So that's really stayed with me throughout my life, and I'm fortunate to be married to somebody who, when I jokingly said 10, 15 years ago, maybe a little bit of Botox for my birthday, said, if you ever do that, don't come home.
Well, to be fair, you don't need it.
And doesn't like
all that.
Doesn't like a lot of makeup. But, I feel that people should, regardless of their age, they should be free to do what they want. If you can still wear jeans and high heels in your 60s, 70s, and go out party all night, then you should be able to do it. It's but that would be a precondition for that would mean that you were healthy that you were strong, that you were fit. And that's, that's what I always come down to. If you want to look okay over a sustained period, it will always come back to doing the things that we all know we should be doing.
Wow, that was very insightful and quite eye-opening. And I definitely learned a lot on this episode. I don't know about you.
It just goes to show that beauty is really a personal thing. And we should not really judge one another. The purpose of this episode was to show that beauty is in the eye of the beholder, like Bernadette said, but also that you have options. You don't have to follow one trend. You have options. Literally, you can choose what's best for you, and ultimately makes you feel your best self.
And always remember, like art, beauty is subjective.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's your unique features that make you beautiful. So learn to embrace those and work with what you have again, and not against it.
Yeah.
And try and.
And I know this episode we mainly focused on the women, but we also know that this applies to men as well. So if men, you feel left out there, know that you are in our thoughts. And yes, we've spoken to mainly women, but we also know this applies to you too.
Yeah, our brothers are definitely struggling. It doesn't matter if you don't have a jet black beard. You're still very attractive, and embrace and love yourself.
So this was it for this episode. Thank you so much for joining us, and we shall see you all next week. مع السلامة.
Kwaheri.